everyone. Great to see you again. I'm Kayadu. I hope you've already watched the introduction to this story. If not, you can find the link in the description below. Now, let's get into Chapter 1, Born from Dust. Malleswaram is a village with a burdened soul and a beautiful heart. Nestled between rolling hills that kiss the sky and dense clouds that drape the mountain peaks like white shawls lay the quiet village of Malleswaram. A place where time moved a little slower, where mornings broke with the songs of birds and the rustle of paddy leaves in the gentle wind. Around 5,000 souls called this village home, simple, sturdy people who had weathered more than their fair share of storms. The land itself was a masterpiece of rural grace. Emerald green paddy fields spread out like a living carpet, filling the air with the fresh smell of wet earth and growing plants. A gentle breeze brought the sweet scent of grass and flowers. Narrow paths ran through the fields, often where barefoot children laughed and chased butterflies. Nearby, ponds shimmered in the morning sunlight, reflecting the light like shiny mirrors. The incredible scent of water mixed with the lively aroma of fish swimming beneath the surface. Now and then, a kingfisher would dive into the water, creating a splash and adding to the joyful feel of this peaceful place. Yet despite its breathtaking beauty, Malleswaram bore a stigma label unjustly branded during the era of British rule. Many generations ago, during the height of the colonial era, the British labeled the village as a shelter for criminals. This designation was not based on any actual crimes committed by its residents but rather stemmed from fear and ignorance. The lack of education among the villagers contributed to this perception, as it served the colonial powers' need for control and domination. This serious misjudgment left a lasting scar, passing down through the decades like a shameful inheritance that no one deserved, yet everyone had to bear. Even now, in the so-called modern age, the stain of that colonial accusation persists. People from neighboring towns often spoke of Malleswaram with caution, as if its soil could still infect decency. Police officers, too, usually eyed the villagers with suspicion, not because of any wrongdoing but because of a label that time had failed to erase. But what outsiders failed to see, what they refused to see, was that Malleswaram had changed. Slowly, painfully, but surely. A new generation had risen, carrying books instead of burdens. Parents who once feared the world beyond the hills now saved money to send their children to school. They built their dreams on cracked mud floors, taught discipline under the shadows of mango trees, and fed ambition with simple meals of rice and buttermilk. They may not have had riches, but they were rich in something far more critical: unity and honor. Among these children was Rahim, a quiet boy with searching eyes and a determination etched deep into his soul. He wasn't just studying for himself, he was studying for the soul of the village. For every whisper that labeled his people criminals, he read harder. For every raised eyebrow, he grew more resolute. Like many of his peers, Rahim participated in a quiet revolution, a reclamation of the dignity that history had stripped away. The community itself was bound not by blood but by a shared sense of resilience. Youths helped each other with their farms during harvest, women worked together at the temple festivals, weaving jasmine garlands and cooking for hundreds. When a child was ill, it wasn't just the mother who stayed awake all night, it was the neighbors, too. Entire streets celebrated weddings, and when someone grieved, the whole village stood beside them in quiet solidarity. The children played barefoot, laughing loudly as it echoed through the valley. Dusty lanes turned into cricket pitches, and the pond embankments became football grounds. Their games weren't divided by caste or class, only by who got to bowl first. Yes, Malleswaram had a past soaked in prejudice. But it also had a present rich in virtue, culture, and quiet resistance. It was not a village of criminals, it was a village of misjudged hearts, misunderstood dreams, and deeply rooted hope. And in the midst of it all, boys like Rahim weren't just growing up. They were rising. Rahim never had the luxury of an easy childhood. Until the age of 6, he hadn't spoken a single word. His world was gestures and silence. Even though the people of Malleswaram stood by him with warmth, his own relatives gossiped in hushed tones, calling him cursed or broken. But his mother? She believed. She fought. She had checked with professional doctors, and she chose a future for him when no one else could see it. She admitted Rahim to an international school, as per the doctor's consultation, despite their poverty and doubts. It was her defiance against fate. Rahim stepped into his teenage years, shading most of his silence, yet traces of it lingered in his voice, measured, calm, and unexpectedly fluent in English. He had completed his 12th grade with decent marks and was now pursuing a Bachelor of Engineering, B. Although his grades weren't extraordinary in school, his knowledge spoke volumes. He could talk about political systems, cricket statistics, black holes, and government policies with equal clarity. His teachers often paused to listen when he spoke. He was an average boy. No polished shoes, no stylish watch. But his eyes always carried a question, and his answers always carried thoughts. And yet, despite his intelligence and depth, Rahim had never spoken to a girl. Not because he feared them but because none had ever crossed that invisible line. His friends were like him, outsiders to romance, insiders to late-night study groups and tea debates. In school, he once had a crush on a girl. She never knew. Her father caught him staring and made sure Rahim never forgot the embarrassment he had caused. Since then, he has stayed in the safe corner of silence. But life had its way of writing new stories. He got into an engineering college at the border of two towns, Krishnapuram and Malleswaram, a fragile boundary between cultures that often clashed. His village, renowned for its emotional outbursts and unfinished dreams, had sent very few of its residents into higher education. Rahim was among the rare first-generation college-goers. He carried not just books but the weight of expectation and a silent promise to himself. Initially, college felt like a cold metal chair, unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Rahim attended classes, sat alone, took notes, and went home. The faces around him felt too modern, too polished. He didn't feel poor, but he didn't feel like he belonged either. Boys cracked jokes in fluent English. Girls carried scented notebooks. He felt invisible. Then, one day, a quiet ripple disturbed his usual routine. She walked in. Her name, he learned later, was Vaishnavi. At first glance, she didn't seem extraordinary. But Rahim noticed the details others missed. Her eyes, wide and unreadable like rain-washed glass, lips, soft and tinted like rose petals in twilight, earrings that danced gently with every turn of her head, and a nose, dainty yet defined, like the finishing stroke of a quiet masterpiece. She had the grace of someone who wasn't trying to impress, which, ironically, made her all the more unforgettable. Vaishnavi had recently joined the class. She was from Krishnapuram, where education was a pride stitched into daily life. Her father, a government employee, had passed away not long ago. Yet she walked with a calm grace, hiding grief in her laughter. She spoke to everyone with ease but rarely in a significant way.